Hey guys, I have an incredible guest with us here today. You may know him as one of the great visual storytellers of the past 20 years through James Bond novelizations. And he's here today talking with us about the brand new covers for the Ian Fleming, take two, for the Ian Fleming Publications hardback covers that just dropped here in October of 2024. Please welcome Michael Gillette.
Thank you. It's a very sweet introduction.
Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely. Well, and you have been just kind of in and out, I feel like, many of the fans' lives over the past roughly 20 years at this point.
Yep, 60. I guess it's 16. I did the first covers right before we had our daughter, and she's 16. So it's, yeah. But yeah, it's been good and long. It's great to meet people like you, and all the enthusiasm in that world is, it was a shock at first. I was like, whoa, what have I stumbled into here? But it's great. I mean, the passion and it's just so much fun.
So I'm an artist myself. Like that's when I was growing up, I thought I was going to work for Disney.
Oh, great.
And so being able to talk to people like yourself who have taken it to that level, who took the gift and ran with it, that to me is an honor. So really, I've enjoyed a lot of your work. I love, and we're going to get to Bond covers here in just a second, guys, I promise. But I love how you also do the dog
Oh,
versions
yeah.
of different celebrities.
Yeah.
Tell me about those for just a quick second.
Well, it just started off. I found a box of cards from the 60s that were just had the same drawing of a dog, like high school art, I call it, that perfect little rendering of a dog. And it was just exactly the same dog in each box. And I found a bunch of them just randomly from the 60s. And I started drawing over them like you do a magazine, right? Or, you just start defacing them. So it was fun. And I realized just how much fun it was. And after a while, they started to I thought, well, maybe I can do this properly and draw the underdog, I call it, like the under drawing underneath it, do it myself, get it printed on really nice paper, and then see what I could do with it. So that was the game, really. And it started off just messing around. I'd do one a night after work. And then after a while, I think I did an exhibition of them. And then from that exhibition, a publisher was interested. So it went on for, it had quite a life to it. But that's how it started, just messing around, really. Just that fun thing of, we've all done it, right? Just defacing a magazine.
So of course, you have to do an entire Bond series of these. You gotta hit all the Bonds at least. Give us a dog, Daniel Craig.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah.
You're living in St. Louis today, correct?
Right.
But
Yeah.
you've traveled all over the globe.
Well, Britain and America for sure. Yeah, I moved to America 2001, late 2001. So San Francisco, Bay Area, Northern California, really all around there. And then we moved here about a year ago to try something different. I suppose I've dotted around London, Somerset,
Yeah,
Swansea, grew up in Wales.
I was gonna say, like, you were living in San Francisco for a couple decades.
Mhm.
Um, kind of shook up the West Coast over there for a little while. And guys, be sure to stick around to the end of the video because Michael's going to talk to us about something. It's going to be my final question that you're not going to want to miss. This about maybe something he has in the pipeline. We'll get there. Let's go ahead and jump into the questions if you're ready.
Yeah, sure.
All
Yeah.
right. Having lived in Wales, London, San Francisco, and obviously, as we discussed now, St. Louis,
Yeah.
what and then maybe how has this changed or influenced like the culture that's surrounding you? How has that changed and influenced the way you look at how a James Bond book should look?
That's an interesting question. I suppose the most direct influence I've had is we lived in a couple of Eichler homes in Northern California, and Eichler was a mid-century architect. If you think of those David Hockney pictures with glass floor to ceiling, atriums, and things like that, it was like a subdivision, a couple of subdivisions that are all that architectural style, all built by the same guy. What was unique about it was that he was the architect and he also ran the building company. So there was no compromise. His vision was everywhere. So it was living in mid-century modern land. So yeah, it was really delightful to have that experience. So it made an influence on my art in that, my art had always been very realistic and it didn't really go in this house. Like mid-century, more graphic things went, more abstract things went. But
Mm.
it kind of changed the way that I made art. I started making some abstract stuff, messing around with different things. Maybe it was part of my career as well, because I, already had met, a couple of decades at least by then. So I think that's the closest I can think of that had a direct impact. So yeah, I suppose that's the most. I can't think of anything that, yeah, that's the most direct thing I could think of.
Okay, was there anything in San Francisco that like jumped out? I know that like with your previous set of books, and guys,
Mhm.
I'm going to throw a picture of those up here so you can see them now. But like with the 2008 Penguin books that
Mhm.
you did. I mean, obviously that was a series.
Yeah.
That was a full. It was a more cohesive set, I would say, rather than. And we'll get into that later. But the colors were there, and I
Right.
know that that was something that was important to you, was utilizing kind of the different colors. Was there anything from Wales or San Francisco that had any influence in that same vein?
I suppose the San Francisco influence was in the type on those covers, the kind of psychedelic aspects of that type. Because growing up in Wales, one of the first people that really opened my mind artistically was a guy called Rick Griffin, who was one of those psychedelic poster artists from the 60s, from the Haight. Actually lived in a part of San Francisco where I turned out I lived 2 streets away. It was almost like the pull was that type. We ended up really close to him. So I think maybe that was the influence on that kind of psychedelic scene of San Francisco was always really important to me. And that was the draw that was how San Francisco kind of first ever entered into my mind, was seeing those posters. And when I arrived there, I was like, oh, this really makes sense. I understood why it all arose there. So maybe that was the influence on that.
And I don't know if it was with the brush strokes, with some of the shapes. I would say definitely the words, like the fonts that were chosen, like the shapes of the words,
Right.
very psychedelic vibes there with those original books. So
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful set. Now I recently watched your interview with License to Queer,
Okay.
David Lobridge Ellis, and shout out to David. It's good to meet you in London, sir. With David, I know when you guys were talking, you said that there were sometimes five different versions of the, or up to five different versions of these new covers that you
Right.
had kind of gone through and like laid out the foundation and then revised it, laid out the foundation. But you also talked and said that Ian Fleming Publications, they were very kind of easygoing and let you do your own thing. What covers did you think had some of the biggest revisions? And how, I guess, walk us through how you landed on that final version.
Well, the reason there were so many was because of the length of time it took, or the
Right.
length of time that the project lasted. So I pitched to them in 2018, I think. And they were very geometric. They were the most abstract versions. There's a couple that are in there that made it through. I think For Your Eyes Only is one, and Octopussy is one. But the first one I did was a treatment for Moonraker, and it was very mid-century, and it's not the final one. I suppose I did almost a full set like that. So there's a whole iteration of those. I suppose what's different is I try to have a lot of ideas, but what happened with these was I did them almost to finish rather than just, the normal way would be to do some sketches, show the client, and then, they would pick one and then you would finish it up. But because of the way that this went on and my relationship with the estate, from selling the prints of the first book, the first series, that's how I could pitch to them. When I sent off the first set, obviously they said, yeah, these are really interesting. I think they showed them to the board then, to the family, and they were keen on it, but it was absolutely not a done deal by any stretch. So I just put them away for probably about 4 years. I didn't touch it much for 4 years then. And then at that point, I suppose I knew that they were, from the beginning, I thought they would self-publish. I thought it was a done deal that they would do that. I don't know why I was so convinced, but I really did think that it was just going to happen. So by 2022, that was the case. Maybe it's 2021 actually, that I knew that they were going to do that. So it was towards, well, it was middle of COVID in California because that went on for a heck of a long time there. And I was teaching a class at the California College of Art in San Francisco on concept art. So it was much more symbolism and what I call twofers, where you have two states in a picture, like the silhouettes of the girls in the back of the gun, things like that,
Yes.
negative space, just playing around with those kind of tropes. And I taught this whole class about those ideas, how to make basically how to make concept ideas. And at the end of it, I introduced them to a lot of people like Saul Bass, and his concepts to symbolize and summarize was his thing, and also to find like a visual hook, almost like a logo for his movie posters. So we'd gone through all this, and at the end of that class, I'd also been telling them all the way that your mind would give you as many ideas as you asked of it, which, is true in my experience.
Like that. I like that.
Because I mean, we all do it, right? And I could see it with students much clearer than I can see it with myself. But, to have the one idea and then to grip onto it, and then, it's like a security blanket. Please don't take my idea away. I've had this idea. I never have another one. Don't mess with it.
Right.
So I'd been there saying, oh no, you are your mind is, if you ask it for more, it'll give you more. It'll do what you ask it to do, and just
Right.
have a sketchbook and make those ideas. And at the end of it, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not doing that anymore. Maybe I've come to be that one idea person. And then the ending period was when they said, okay, it's happening. And that was this year. So this year I finished off another 6 and maybe revisited some of the others and sort of harmonized them. But to
Mm.
answer your question, so the one that was the most went through the most stages was Casino Royale. And I think it's because it's the first, and it's
Yeah.
it's like the calling card. And we've been through it. I designed some that I liked, and the struggle was always that they had to be kind of effortless in the end. They had to look effortless, and that can be really hard because you get
Oh, I know.
yeah. I went through a bunch of ideas, and the estate, they weren't, they didn't say, they were like those ones we'd still like to see another idea, and I was like, oh, that's fine, that's okay. And that one ended up as a Bond girl, and it just seemed, I was, that ended up as a Bond girl, and it also was an idea that I'd been trying to do for a long time, which is it's an idea called the fadeaway girl. It was sort of prevalent in the turn of the 20th century, where you'd see these women that would kind of merge in and out of the background. You'd see their hand, and your mind would make up the rest. And that idea, I thought, oh, well, that really fits this book. That the sort of slither of hers, like this, she's very slight on that cover between all
Yep.
that color. And it was from the idea that he's just become a 007 and he's trying to back out of it, right? Now, spoiler alert, I'm sure everyone knows the story, but he's kind of he's having an existential crisis, right? And maybe she's the way out of a life of killing. So it was that idea that she's just like this slim promise within it, between these kind of fields of his before life and after life. It's very red, the second half, you
Very
know.
deep. Very deep.
Well, I sit in this room on my own for a long time. You got to come up with
Oh,
something.
yeah, no, I get it. What it, and this kind of takes me back to if you think about it, if you remember the promo artwork for The World Is Not Enough, there was a silhouette of Bond holding a gun, but it was also a girl's outline. It was
Oh,
her
wow.
figure, and it was the flame. It was
Right,
like this was the teaser poster for The World Is Not Enough. And so
right.
that's actually when I looked at Casino Royale, the final version, I'm going, there's I see a lot of symbolism in that as well because they
Right.
were very similar. Let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room here with some of the covers. The decision to step away from the more Bond girl fantasy covers, and I know we just talked about Casino Royale being a Bond girl, but
Hmm.
obviously two very different things. Your original set from 2008, and these very, very different aesthetically, everything.
Yeah.
What was the motivation behind the artistic direction here
Hmm.
to make that jump? Did you, and I know you've talked and said that time was on your side here because it wasn't a traditional pitch a sketch to the client, go back and you make adjustments back and forth. But did you always know that given the opportunity to step into another set of covers like this, that you wanted them to be more individualized and have that kind of approach where each one was its own thing?
I suppose I would be asked once, getting involved with the Bond fan world, I would be asked occasionally, "Oh, when are you going to do another set?" And I'd be like, "Oh, that just doesn't work like that. That's
I mean,
not."
understandably so.
Yeah, yeah,
First, it
yeah,
was great, man.
exactly. But I also there came a time when, once I developed that, because when I did the first set, I didn't really deal with the estate. I dealt with Penguin. So my relationship with them was after it, out at the back end when I started making the prints. And they're a very family orientated unit, and they do work on trust and things like that. So I felt like, okay, I've gained their trust, but my mind was like, I don't have another set of I wouldn't know what to do. And there's no point doing the same thing. That's not going to fly, right? Once I had the idea, I realized, yeah, this is a good fit. It's going to work. It's going to be not so that the abstract nature of it is very forgiving to allow ideas to come in and out. And then for things just to be decorative, too. It's very flexible. So I was like, oh yeah, this would probably work. So that was the impetus. And the first set I did, I'm not a pin-up artist really. You know, I got that job through someone I went to college with, actually, a designer called Johnny Gray, who's a Gray 318. He's a very well-known book designer in Britain. And he asked me to do it because he knew I could do it. He didn't, there was, he'd seen my work and he's like, I bet you Michael could have a pop at this and do it. But out the back end of it, it had I guess we all know Bond has a lure that, and an attention, like you're speaking to me now, that is bigger than most things. So out the back of it, people thought, well, he's a pin-up artist. And I'm like, that wasn't the point. I did this for the job and
Mm.
did it, to the best of my ability. But I didn't want to be that. There's so many great pin-up artists out there that I was like, I did it specifically for this job and it was right for it.
Kind of
So
like getting typed, like an actor gets typecasted.
yeah, I mean, it's a monkey see, monkey do game out there, right? So Simon, one of the editors, he said, I don't want to see cards and things like that. And I was like, well, it's not about seeing cards or not. It's how it's done, right? It's not because all the fantastic sandbox of Bond to play in, the girls and the villains and their lairs and, mission controls and all those things. It's so fantastic to be able to, so excited to be able to use all those different things
Yeah.
to go into. I'm just like, there's nothing wrong with any of those things. It's just how you repurpose them and put them together in a way that's a little more unusual. Yeah. And then I, made a joke one with like a fruit machine with two plums and a seven. Well, but it's kind of, I'll show it to you, I'll send it to you. But it was just a joke. I was just messing around with it. But I knew this has got to be a really direct commercial image. And I suppose that's like holding back the amount of girls was, they have to be in there somewhere.
We had also just come off of the previous version of the paperbacks that were released last year
Right.
that I thought were, and I don't pull punches, I thought they were atrocious. Uh, but there's a reason behind that, and I won't go into that here because that's for another video. But
Right.
but I really enjoyed From Russia with Love. I think
Right.
that cover is absolutely genius level design because it's using the decoders. And
Yeah.
I talk about that in the video, how because I started looking it up, I'm like, what is this?
Mm.
And when it started making sense, I'm like, oh my god, this is microdot.
Right.
He's using the Dr. No dots in a sense of where he's playing off of the microdots,
Yeah.
create this image off of 8 pieces of material. That's something a spy would do. So
Right.
really, really enjoyed several of the covers.
That's good. That
Yeah.
one was one that they'd already agreed a different cover. And then
Oh,
I had that idea and I sold it hard to them.
Good for you.
I knew it was a good idea, and it took a while to make it work. I was just moving dots around for days because once you split up move them apart, the strips,
Yeah.
it just, you had to allow all this kind of fudgery and sleight of hand that you'd hope a machine would be able to do for you, but it couldn't. It was all hand moving rows of dots and all that kind of thing. But that's one of those things when, from that conceptual side of things, it's a concept that, the two lures are the cipher and the girl, and to bring them together into one thing is, that's a symbolize and summarize thing that works well. When I did the first set of Bond girls, I got really quite harsh mail from people. Yeah, because
Shame on you.
people are so passionate about it, and everyone enters the Bond world from maybe of a different era. Maybe it's an actor, maybe it's the books, maybe it's a video game. Maybe it's a toy that somebody got when they were 9 and they went to see some film. And those kind of where Bond's footprints go through the fresh cement is what people want to see. It's very that's a big challenge of dealing with them. So when I put that first set out, I got people that wrote to me quite harshly about things that were wrong with them and all these kind of things. And I was like, whoa, what have I done? What have I done here? But then,
Welcome to the fandom.
yeah, well, but over time, then people will talk to me and say, oh, yeah, I like that cover, this one not so much. And then another person will say, oh, I like that cover, but not this one, not so much. It goes into where people feel it should be. But I think overall, my thing with them is I put so much attention, and I really wanted it to be that people would at least, like you talk about the previous paperback set. It's very difficult, I think, for a design house to spend the time, I mean, there's all kinds of factors. I mean, book covers pay the same as they did when I graduated in 1992.
Oh, wow.
It's not a job that's going to make you rich. But so I suppose, well, my feeling was good luck to anybody that does the next one. You've got so much history, you've got so many things that have been done, and so many, and if it's completely radically out of the Bond world, then it's not going to work either.
When you're reinventing, as you're coming in as the new James Bond, you have to now reinvent
Yeah.
this. And it's the same kind of concept as an artist steps
Yeah.
into, because you're like, well, this is what everybody did before me, so I can't do any of that. So that's off the table. And you
Yeah.
go, what's left?
Yes.
Where's what's left in the sandbox to play with, to
Yeah.
be able to pull from?
Yeah.
And I think you did a great job on this one, man. I really do.
Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I say I'm a massive Beatles fan, and whenever I see something that comes out for the Beatles that's not really handled with the love that you expect, I know how disappointing that is. And, why would someone fork out money for a book that's got, that hasn't got that attention to it at this point in time?
Talk to me about the cover Moonraker and like the front and the back design of that one, because I feel like that one is the one that I feel like I struggled the most with understanding the concept, because we have obviously the iconic Moonraker rocket, but we don't see the rocket anywhere. We don't see something, at least on the front, because I've only seen the front as of right now. So tell me, where's the connection with the planet, the moon?
I suppose it's in that Wheel of Bond, the mission control, so to think of the rocket launch. And I was trying to get an idea of Britain being in peril, but in this kind of minimalist way. So it's just 5 red dots for Britain. So this idea that I hope you get the idea that, something is afoot here. And maybe if you make that connection that this is kind of a mission control, it looks like Defender to me, I'm of a certain age. So but it's a kind of, that was what I was thinking of, the kind of mission control. Something is going to happen to Britain, and it's happening from a mission control. So that's what that kind of mission, the missile launch, that was what I was hoping to get across. And on the back, it's just like 3 trajectories, 3 rocket trajectories.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, but that's one thing that someone said to me the other day that was their favorite, and I was like, well, that's really interesting because you just never can tell what people are going to get from it.
It's true. It's true. And for anybody else who was maybe having a bit of a challenge understanding that one with me now we know it. Having that context, that's what makes these conversations so great, is
Right.
because some of the, like, Dr. No is hands down chef's kiss, my favorite of this entire collection. Uh,
Right.
I love it, even though there's some people out there who are like, oh, well, no, it's not a spider, and his hands are supposed to be pincers, not the mechanical.
That's true.
And I'm like, well, yes, but
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah.
Because I
Just
even said that. I said his hands are supposed to be the pincers, and I thought it would have been cool if we would have seen that. But then in looking at it, I love how you have his fingers curled to match the exact same trajectory as the spider's legs.
right.
Turn his hand, it's the exact same position. The fingers,
That's right.
and I
Well,
loved that.
well, I don't know whether you've seen, well, then initially, this was one of the very last ones. Initially, it was actually split down the middle that way. It was designed that way to be like half spider, half hand, right? So
Oh,
that's why they mirror. But this is a inside baseball. Really late in the day, the estate had reformatted the interior text of the books. Initially, they were all going to be square images on a. You'll see them in the alternative versions you'll see that the original format was much more regular book shape. The books are like this shape now, right? They're more pillar box shape.
yeah.
So that led to everything having to be reformatted, and it changed everything. They were initially just like almost Polaroid shape, nice mid-century, clean, round. So quite late in the day, this came, maybe in the last couple of months. Um, yeah. So that side by side didn't work. It was too small. It got really weak. So I flipped them. So they still had that the as you say, like that kind of mirror, exactly the same. That's why they are the same. So you'll see it. You'll see the original
That's
version.
beautiful. So does that late? God, that is so late in the game to change something that massive.
Yeah.
Your format. So did
Yeah.
that play into having the white stripe at the top of each book to kind of help counter offset everything?
Yes. Yeah, really, yes. We had a weekend that was very, very late where I reformatted them. It took a long time to go and reformat everything. And I just went to bed one night and I was like, this doesn't work. I realized that because of the crease down the spine on the front, it was going to eat into the white and it was going to optically throw your eyes off and everything was going to look mean. It was going to look tight and mean and the image was going to look small. So I had this, I went to bed. I was like, I can't believe it. I think this is getting away from me. And then I woke up the next morning. I was like, no, it's got to just be like a full wrap around, make the image as widescreen as possible. This was in August. This was literally weeks before, going to press. This is a kind of, but this is the wonderful thing about working with the estate is it's just much more direct,
Right.
and you can, it's much more nimble ship. That is one of the stories for this. It's like that with the world changing, and I think that like a lot of other sort of family estates are looking to the Fleming estate to see how it goes,
Yeah.
because there, you are in that world where you can direct, you've got a fan base that's completely solid. Why do you need to? It's like the music industry, right? If you've got a fan base, why do you need a major record label to be wasting all your money and, you know, maybe handling you right or maybe not.
Yeah.
So
Well, now they've got the money, they've got the audience. Do it yourself, control it in house. You're going to make more money hand over foot anyway if you go that direction. And like you're saying, you then get the flexibility of working with artists and letting them do what you hired them to do.
right.
All right. So, final question.
Okay.
This is the one you guys have been waiting for. Michael, you've done the full 12 set of novels, right? 14,
14.
14, 14, sorry. 14 set of novels. And this is your second time around. Sir, what is next on the agenda? Like, what is it that you're planning on tackling next? Do you have some Bond continuation novel ideas in mind, such as like Carte Blanche. I know you did a couple with the older set where you went into some of the what his name is escaping me. John Gardner books.
John Gardner,
yeah. You did some of the Gardner novels.
Yeah.
And those were beautiful.
Yeah.
So are we going to see something like that with this set, do you think?
Don't know, really. I mean, they're funny, those novels, the continuation ones, because, it's like the 70s and 80s, and Bond is running around in Dunhill slacks in an Audi. It's like, you're in a different territory. It's aged in a different way. I like some of them, like the Colonel's Son. I think is great. Kingsley Amis. Right?
That's exactly that's the cover I want to see you do the most.
Right. The next step will be to make these as prints. So that's where I'm looking into like a couple of different places in St. Louis to make them as screen prints or block prints. And what would that, because of the initial genesis was that I think it'd be great to take it a full circle, and that will be the next step.
Okay, so with the prints, are we going to be looking at something similar to what you've done before, where there's multiple sizes? We're going to have every cover, only certain covers?
Well, let's see how it goes. They'll be more expensive for me to make, so I think they will be released not all together. They'll be released one at a time. So maybe it'll be almost like a subscription, or at least something where it's done over time. That's what I'm looking into. And if it's a screen print, maybe it'll be a bigger thing, but they'll be, nicely embossed, maybe, having a couple of embosses on them, all hand numbered and signed. There'll be, I'm just got like reams of paper in to see what the paper will be. And, it's got to be, it's interesting because, that the Bond world has gone from pulp fiction to a luxury product in the whole same sandwich. I can't think of anything else that's like that. So, they will be as high quality as I can make them, really.
Well, you message me, sir, when they're ready to go.
All right.
We've already got a customer, I promise.
Okay, great. Wonderful.
Okay, great.
I'll put you down for Dr. No.
Yes, I can't wait. And I think you guys are going to love these too. Take a look at all the covers. Guys, all of the books are currently available on ianfleming.com right now, ianflemingpublication.com. I'll put it here somewhere. But make sure you pick up each book. They're going for 20 British pounds. Michael, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you so much for asking me and for taking an interest and being kind. Totally appreciate it.
Maybe when the prints come out, we can have you back on the channel and talk about those.
Super cool. I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, brother. You have yourself a great day. Everybody, thank you very much for watching. And as always, Merry Christmas, 007.